तस्य कल्याणगुणार्णवस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा
तस्य कल्याणगुणार्णवस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा
महाप्रभो कीर्तन नृत्य गीता वादित्रमाद्यान् मनसोरसेना रोमाञ्चकं पाशुतरङ्गभाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा श्रीविग्रहाराधननित्यनाना शृङ्गारतन्मान्दिरमर्जुनादो
श्रीविग्रहाराधननित्यनाना शृङ्गारतन्मान्दिरमर्जुनादो
युक्तस्य भक्तांश्च नियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा
युक्तस्य भक्तांश्च नियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा
चतुर्वेदा श्रीभगवत्प्रसादो स्वाद्वन्नतृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घा
चतुर्वेद श्री भगवत्प्रसादो स्वाद्वन्नतृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्घा
कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजता सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा
कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा
श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपार माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना
माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना
प्रतीक्षणास्वादनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा
प्रतीक्षणास्वादनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा
निकुञ्जयूनो रतिकेलिसिद्धये यायालिभिर्योक्तिरपेक्षणीया
निकुञ्जयो नरतिकरिसिद्धये यायालिभिर्योक्तिरपेक्षणीया
तत्रादिदाक्षादतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा साक्षाधरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रैरुक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव साध्वी किन्तु प्रभोर्य प्रियैव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दा
किन्तु प्रभोजा प्रिया एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणरविन्दम्
यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् न गति कुतोऽपि यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् न गति कुतोऽपि ध्यायन्तु वां सस्य यशस्त्रीसन्ध्यां वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दाम्
ध्यायन्तु वां तस्य यशस्त्रीसन्ध्यां वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दाम्
ध्यायन्तु वां सस्य यशस्त्रीसन्ध्यां वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दाम्
ध्यायन्तु वां तस्य यशस्त्रीसन्ध्यां वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दाम्
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दाम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दाम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दाम्
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दाम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दाम्
नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने
नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति
नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदिशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदिशतारिणे
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरा भक्तवृंद
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरा भक्तवृंद
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Krishna
Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram
Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama.
Hare Rama Krishna Hare Rama,
Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama.
Hare Rama Krishna Hare Rama,
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama,
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama,
Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana.
Gopal Govinda Ram Srimati Sudana,
Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohana.
Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan,
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Vishnu Para Param Saprabha Jagacharya Shuttara Shri Shishimar His divine grace of Bhajana Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Pratishta Vibhiti Samstava Kacha Vaishnav Siromani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Gurya Guru Varga Patita Udhara ki jai. Shri Rup Sanatana Bhakta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhakta Dasa Guna Satguru Swami Prabhu ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ji ki jai. Ananta Kuti Vaishnav Vrindi ki jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनाक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि अवतार की जय। गौरकेर प्रमधान हरि नाम संकीर्तन जग की जय। जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। बृहत निदांग ट्रांसलेटर बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप राधा कुंज समकुंज गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रजभूमि वृंदावन मथुराधाम की जय। चलो श्री राधा नील माधव की जय। श्री मायापुरपति एक चक्रधाम की जय। परम करुण श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम चित्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। सीताराम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान जी की जय। भक्ति सर्व विघ्न अविनाशन कर्ण सिंह भगवान की जय। गंगा माई जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री मथुरा रानी की समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौरी प्रमानंदे। All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru Shri Gaurang. Finishing up.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Praladhaladhadahine Hiranyakashipurvakshah Shilatankanakalaye Ito Narsimha Parato Narsimha Yato yato yami tato narsimha. Yato yato yami tato narsimha. Bahir narsimha hridaye narsimha. Bahir narsimha hridaye narsimha. Narasimhamadim sharanam prapadye. Narasimhamadim sharanam prapadye. Tava kara kamalavare nakam adbhuta shringam. Dalita hiranyakashipur tanubringam. Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare. Jai Jagadish Hare. Jai Jagadish Hare. Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Singam. Dalita Hiranyakashipu तनुभृङ्गाम् केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय केशवधृता जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो सिंहदेव जयो जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय प्रहलाद महाराज निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल
श्री भक्ति प्रोफेसर विघ्नाशन कनिष्ठदेव भगवान की जय भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय गौर प्रमानंद हरि बोल श्री वृंदाय तुलसी प्रियाय केशव सत्यम विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी शतवत्ताय नमः वृंदाय तुलसी प्रियाय केशव सत्यम विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी शतवत्ताय नमः वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशव सत्या विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी शतवत्ताय नमः श्रीमते तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाबो हे अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावन हे अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाबो हे अभिलाषी
Radha Krishna Seva Prabhu
જે તો માર શરણ લોય તારા વાંચ પૂર્ણ હોય
જે તો માર શરણાલા તારા વંચ પૂર્ણ
કૃપા કોરી કોરો તારે વૃંદાવન વાસી
કૃપા કરી કર તારે વૃંદાવનવાસી
મોરાયા બિલાસ બિલાસ કુંજ દિયો વાસ
વિલાસ કુંજ દિયાવા
નયને હેરી બો સદા યુગલ રૂપ રાસી
અમિનાયાને રેવ સદા જુગલ રૂપરાસી
એ નિવેદન ધરો સખીરાનુગત કોરો
હે નિવેદન ધર સતીર્યનો ગત
સેવાદી કર દિયે કોરો નિજ દાસી
સેવાયારી કરમી
દીના કૃષ્ણ દાસે કોઈ એ નમોરા હોય
દીન કૃષ્ણ દાસે કા એના મોરા
શ્રી રાધા ગોવિંદા પ્રેમે સદાય નભાસી
શ્રી રાધા ગોવિંદ પ્રેમે સદને નવાસી
યાની કાની ચ પાપાની બ્રહ્મહત્યધિકાની ચ તાની તાની પ્રનશન્તિ પ્રદક્ષિણા પદે પદે
જાની કાની સાપપાની બ્રહ્મહત્યરી કનિષા તનિ તનિ પ્રણસંતિ પ્રદક્ષિણા પાદે પાદે
યાની કાની ચ પાપાની બ્રહ્મહત્યધિકાની ચ તાની તાની પ્રનશન્તિ પ્રદક્ષિણા પદે પદે
જાની કાની સાપપાની બ્રહ્મહત્યરી કનિષા તનિ તનિ પ્રણસંતિ પ્રદક્ષિણા પદે પદે
યાની કાની ચ પાપાની બ્રહ્મહત્યધિકાની ચ તાની તાની પ્રણશન્તિ પ્રદક્ષિણા પદે પદે
જાની કાની સાપપાની બ્રહ્મહત્યરી કનિષા તનિ તનિ પ્રણસંતિ
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय.
Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyaya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyaya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyaya Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to return the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower carry hands of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me an honored servant. His very fallen and lowly servant Krishna prays. May I always be love Shri Radha and Govinda. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Ki Jai. Sankirtanam Nam Nam Akari Bahuda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Ki Jai. Mahaprabhu Krishna Prema Krishna Krishna Chaitanya. Glory to Shri Krishna Sankirtana. He cleanses the heart with the dust accumulated for years, and extinguishes the fire of conditional life with the pit of birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large. God is praised, raised in the benediction moment. It is a life all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which always are conscious. Oh my Lord, the holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds, millions of names, and these transcendental names, the basically transcendental energies. There is no living heart and fast food for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy name. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no affection for them. When you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than straight straight. The body of saints falls postage. You should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause and devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some or other, I'm following this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me on the island of your Holy Spirit. Mother, or will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Or will my voice choke out? When the hairs of my body stand on end, there is the question of your name. Oh Govinda, feeling your suppression, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence.
I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace.
What makes me heart by not being present before you?
He's completely free.
Everything is always my worship, O Lord, unconditional. Shri Shri Krishna Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that must be avoided. They are as follows. 1. Voice dedicate life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods of Lord Shiva or Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. Consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit mental activities and strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8.
There's also in Festival the Tenapatch. Every devotee
9. Instruct the fearless person with the glories of holy name. And 10. To have complete faith in chanting the holy name and to condemn material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It also an offense to be intent while chanting. Every devotee claims to be a Vaishnava must give carefully in order to greet this success.
Krishna Prema.
Now let's look for our respectful listeners and to all the Vaishnavas devoted to the Lord.
They are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen. Vanchakapatravyaschа Vipasinubhyevacha Patitanam Vaishnavebhyo Vaishnava Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Bhagavad Gita. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Janmadhyasya yato nivayati taratascha teso vidyasvara.
Janmadhyasya tambayari taratachate
Tene
svavigyasvara.
Brahma Hridayati Kavaye Muyati Yatsure.
Tena Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Mojanti Jasure.
Tejo Varimudam Yatavani Mayo Yatrati Sargo Misha. Damna Svena Sadani Rastakuhakam Satyam Param Dhimayi. O my Lord, Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire or land seen in water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma pojita kaitra vocha, paramo nirmatsaranam satam, vedyam vastavam atro vastu, shivadam tapa trayon bhuvanam, Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite, Kim va purer Ishvaraha, Sadyo Hridi Avarudyate Tara, Kriti Vihi Susubhistakshanat. Completely reject all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in its maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpatarur galitam phalam, sukhamukad amrita dravya samhitam, pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam, muhur aho raska bhuvi bhavaka. O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire to read Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, even though its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Hidyantaksto Hibadhani, Vidunoti Suhit Satam. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best-wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. Nasta presu abhadresu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utamasloke bhaktir bhavati naistaki. In this way, the devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Tadarajas tamo bhava kamalobhadayasche cheta itara navidam stitvam sattve prasidati. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lust and avarice are diminished. Evam prasana manaso bhagavat bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness. becomes enlivened by devotional service,
becomes enlivened with devotional
and
service,
understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the sense of God.
Vidyate hridaya grantis,
Vidyate hridaya grantis,
chidyante sarva samsaya,
chidyante sarva samsaya,
siyante chashikarmani,
chiyante cha sakarmani,
drista evatmanishware.
drista evatmaneshwari.
Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection
Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the heart of material affection
and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram,
and enables them to come at once to the stage of samsara,
understanding of the supreme absolute truth personality of Godhead.
understanding the supreme absolute truth personality of God.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotees in Krishna consciousness
can one understand the science
can
of
one
Krishna.
understand the science of Krishna.
Shri Guru Vastika prayers ki jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it.
His spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish.
So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
So the spiritual master delivers the material afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such spiritual master,
After my respectful obeisance to Lord, to such a spiritual
who is an ocean of auspicious qualities.
ocean of species,
Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments.
chanting the holy name, dancing, and singing and playing music.
The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya
The spiritual
Mahaprabhu.
master always gladdened by the Sankirtan of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind.
Because he's relishing the melody of pure devotion within his mind.
Sometimes his hair stands on end.
Sometimes his hair stands on
He
end.
feels quivering in his body,
He is quivering in his body,
and tears flow from his eyes like waves.
and tears flow from his eyes like
I offer
waves.
my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual
I
master.
offer my respectful obeisance to Lord to such a spiritual.
The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna.
Spiritual master is always engaged in temple worship, Shri Radha.
He also engages his disciples in such worship.
He also engages disciples in such
They
worship.
dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments,
They dress the deities in beautiful clothes, and
clean their temple,
clean their
and
temple,
perform other similar worship of
and
the Lord.
perform other similar worship.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance to Lord to such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food.
Spiritual master also offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious.
Analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked.
Honor that's which they live, chew, drink, and
When the
suck.
spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada,
The spiritual master sees that the body is satisfied by eating Bhagavad
he is
Prasada.
satisfied.
He is satisfied.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual
I offer my
master.
respectful obeisance to Lord to such a spiritual master.
The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava,
The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika
and
Mata
their qualities, names, and forms.
and the qualities, names, and
The
forms.
spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment.
The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance to Lord to such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of
The
Vrindavan.
spiritual master is very dear because it's expert in assisting the gopi, which in different times make different tasteful arrangement for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan.
I offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance to Lord of such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant to the Lord.
The spiritual master will be honored as much as Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servant of the Lord.
This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities.
This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by the authorities.
Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hari Krishna.
Therefore, I offer my humble obeisance to Lord of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hari Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receive the benediction of
Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement.
Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual
At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master.
At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance to Lord to my spiritual master.
Brahmasamita ki jai, Shwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadirada Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam.
Ishvara Parama Krishna Sakchi Ananda Vigraha Anadirade Govinda Sarvakarana
Chintamani Prakata Satma Sukalpa Vriksha
Chintamani
Savatesa
Prakarasatma
Suraviraka
Sukalpa Vriksha
Lakshmi Laksha Vrise Laksha Rite Susrabhirabhipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrahma Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kunantam Aravinda Dalayataksham Arhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Laksabritisam Alola Chandra Kala Sadvanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakili Kala Vilasam Shamam Tribangalalitam Niyata Prakasam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedesa Durlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayoratapi Manaso Munipungavanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tattve Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chaitam Jagadanda Kotim Yasyaktirasti Jagananda Chayadananta Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusaha Suktalyameva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitavis Tabirya Eva Nijarupa Tayakalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksadeva Hidesvila Santaksadeva Hidesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Amenatistan Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvane Sukintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramaha Pumamyo Paramaha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Paramaha Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti Koti Swasesa Vasudadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahmaniskalam Anantamasesa Bhutam Paramaha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagananda Satani Sute Taigun Yatad Vishaya Veda Vitayamana Sattva Pralambi Parasattvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasu Ya praninam patifulam smaratamupetya yatena bhuvanani jaya lila yatena bhuvanani jaya yajashram govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami golokanamni nichitamni tale chatasya devi mahesa haridama sute sute su tete prabhavani jaya vihitasya tete prabhavani jaya vihitasya yena govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami Shristi stati pralaya sadhava saktireka Chayeva yasya bhavanani vivarti durga Ichana rupam api yasya chachesta Ichana rupam api yasya chachesta tesa Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami Shriram yata dadivikara visesa yoga Sanjayate nahitata pritakasti hetoho Yasambutam apitata samapaitikar Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami Dipacha eva hita santanam abhyapetya Dipayate vivita hetu samana dharma Yastadrik eva hicha vishnu taya vibhati Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami Yakarna narnava jaleva chatisma yoga Nidram ananta jagananda saroma kupaha Adhara shaktim avalambya param swamurtim Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami Yasyaika nishvasita kalamatavalamya Jivanti loma vilaja jagadanda nataha Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kala Vishesho Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Basvam Yatasma Sakalesu Nijesu Tejaha Sviyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitatvatatra Brahma Yaesa Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dvande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Rajaha Yesa Vignan Vihanta Malamasya Jagatrayasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahi Gaganamambu Marudisascha Kalastatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Vishanti Amcha Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yachchak Suresa Savita Sakalagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Tejaha Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sutayastapamsi Brahma Dikita Patagava Dayascha Jivaha Iyadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrindra Gopa Matavendra Mahosvakarma Bandhanu Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nildahati Kinchucha Bhakti Bhajam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Vitti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gaurava Sevya Bhavahai Sanchintya Tasya Sadrisim Tanamapurete Bhavai Bhavai Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Bhavai Shriya Kanta Kanta Paramapurusha Kalpataravo Bruma Bhumish Chintamani Gani Mayi Toyam Amritam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Abhibam Sipriya Saki Chid Adantam Jyoti Param Apitat Asvadyam Apicha Sayatra Shiradi Bihi Shravati Surabi Vyascha Sumahan Nime Sarda Kyuva Rajatina Hiyatrapi Samaya Bhaje Svita Dvipam Tamaham Iha Golakamitiyam Vidantaste Santakshiti Virala Chara Katipaye Shishupanishad Ki Jai Om Purnam Ada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate
Om Purnam Ada Purnam Idam Purnam Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam
Ishivaishamidam Sarvam Jakinja Jagatyam Jagatina Taktena Bunjitaha Magritaha Kasasviddanam
Ishavashamidam Sarvam Jakinchit Jagata Tena Tena Bunjin
Purvani Vahakarmani Jiva Chekchitam Samaha Evam Twayi Nanyatetustina Karma Lipyate Nare
Purvam Eva Dakarmani Tiji Chatam Samaha Evam Twayi Nanyatetusti Karmani
Asurya Namate Loka Andena Tamasavritaha Tamste Pritya Pikachanti Yeke Chatya Chatmahano Janaha
Asurya Namate Loka Ganina Tamasavrita Tamche Pichaga Chanti
Anijadika Manaso Javio Naina Devam Apravam Bhavan Vasat Tadavatu Dinanateti Tistat Tasmina Pumata Visvadadati
Anijadika Manaso Savio Ina Deva Anupam Vam Asat Tadavayo Jam Vijitman Tasmin Pavo
Tadejati Tanejati Tadure Tadvantike Tadantarasya Sarvasya Tadusarvasya Syabhayata Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmani Vanupasyate Sarvabhute Sachatmanam Tato Na Vichigupsate
Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmani Evanupapsati Sarvabhuteshu Sarvanam Tato Na Vichigupsate
Yasmin Sarvani Bhutani Atmeva Bhutvijanataha Tatrako Mahakasaka Ekatvam Anupasyataha
Yasmin Sarvani Bhutani Atmava Bhutvijanataha Tatrako Choka Ekatam Anupasyataha
Saprayagachukamakamam Avrinam Asnaviram Sudam Apapavidam Kavirmanisi Paribu Swayambhu Yata Tatyato Rita Vidyadash Jasvatipyaha Samabhyaha
Saprayagachukam Akamyam Avranam Anasam Sudam Apapavidam
Kavirmanisi Paribu Swayambhu Yata Tatyato Rita Vidyadash Jasvatipyaha Samabhyaha Andam tamaha pravisanti ye vidyam upasyate tato bhuya vite tamo yayu vidyayam rataha Anyadevahur vidyaya anyadahura vidyaya iti susruma diranam yenastad vichachakshire
Anyadevahur vidyaya anyadahura vidyaya iti asruma diranam yenastad vichachakshire
Vidyam cha yas yastad vedabhayam saha avidyaya militam tidva vidyayam ritamasnute
Vidyam yachatat vedabhayam saha avidyaya amritam tidva vidyam amritam asnute
Andam tamha pravisanti yesam bhutim apasate tato bhuyai vite tamo yayu sambutam rataha
Andam taha pravishanti ye samritim upasate tato bhuya evate tamo yau sambutayam rataha
Anyadevahur sambhavat anyadahura sambhavat iti susrumadiranam yenastad vichachakshire
Anyadevahur sambhavat anyadahura sambhavat iti asrumadiranam
Sambutim cha vinasam cha yastad vedabhayam saha vinasena militum tidva sambutam ritamasnute
Sambutim cha vishanam cha jadat evadavyam saha Vinashena mrityum sadva sambhuyamritam asnate.
Hiranmayana patyena satyasya bhitam mukam tattvam pusamapavrinus satyadharmaya dristaye.
Vinanmayena pratena swatya piti tam mukam. Tutasavam pasam apuvrinu satyam dharmaya.
Pusane kaseyama surya prajapatya vyuharasmit samahatejo yate rupam kalyanattamam tates pasyami yo savaso purushaha sohamasmi.
Pusane karsheyama surya
Prajapatya vyuharasmit samahatejo
ete trupam katyaptanam ate tushanti
yo
sarani.
savaso purushaha. Vayuranilam amritam atedam basmantam saridam om kratos marakritam smara kratos marakritam smara.
Vayuranima amritam adedam bashmatam shariram o kritos smara kritam smara katos smara
Om Agne Maya Supadaya Yasman Vishwani Deva Vayunani Vidvan Yodashmas Chuhurana Meno Bhuyastam Te Nama Uktim Vedama Om Tat Sat.
Ogam naya supatai sahir asman Shivaswani deva ayuvani idam Vayodya asmat ayudan neno Buyitam tena uktim vedanam.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, verse number 36. Natosmiham tachcharanam samiyusam Bhavachchidam swastyanam sumangalam Yohyatmamaya vibhavam swaparyagad
Yogaimaya vibhavasmam
Yata nabaswantam atta parekuto.
Yata nabhaksvantam atha parekuta.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, it is best for me to surrender unto his feet, which alone can deliver one from the miseries of repeated birth and death. Such surrender is all auspicious and allows one to perceive all happiness. Even the sky cannot estimate the limits of its own expansion. So what can others do when the Lord himself is unable to estimate his own limits? Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Lord Brahma, the greatest of all learned living beings, the greatest sacrificer, the greatest observer of the austere life, and the greatest self-realized mystic, advises us, as the supreme spiritual master of all living beings, that one should simply surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord in order to achieve all success, even up to the limit of being liberated from the miseries of material life and being endowed with all auspicious spiritual existence. Lord Brahma is known as the Pitamaha, or the Father's Father. A young man consults his experienced father about discharging his duties, so the father is naturally a good advisor. But Lord Brahma is the father of all fathers. He is the father of Manu, who is the father of mankind all over the universal planets. Therefore, the men of this insignificant planet should kindly accept the instruction of Brahmaji and would do well to surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord rather than try to estimate the length and breadth of the Lord's potencies. His potencies are immeasurable, as confirmed in the Vedas. Parasya Sakti Vividaya Shriyate Swabhaviki Gyanabala Kriyacha. Svetasvatara Upanishad 6.8. He is the greatest of all, and all others, even the greatest of all living beings, named Brahmaji, admits that the best thing for us is to surrender unto him. Therefore, only those persons with a very poor fund of knowledge claim that they themselves are lords of all that they survey. And what can they survey? They cannot survey even the length and breadth of a small sky in one small universe. The so-called material scientist says that he would need to live 40,000 years to reach the highest planet of the universe, being carried by a Sputnik. This is also utopian because no one can be expected to live 40,000 years. Besides, when the space pilot returned from his travel, none of his friends would be present to receive him back as the greatest astronaut, as has been fashionable for modern, bewildered scientific men. One scientific man who had no belief in God was very much enthusiastic in making plans for his material existence and therefore opened a hospital to save the living. But after opening the hospital, he himself died within 6 months. So one should not spoil his human life, which is obtained after many, many changes of bodies in 8,400,000 species of life, simply for the concocted material happiness of life through increasing artificial needs in the name of advancement of economic development and scientific knowledge. Rather, one should simply surrender unto the feet of the Lord to make a solution to all miseries of life. That is the instruction of Lord Krishna directly in the Bhagavad Gita, and that is the instruction of Srimad Bhagavatam by Brahmaji, the Supreme Father of all living beings. Anyone denying this surrendering process, as recommended both in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and for that matter in all authorized scriptures, will be forced to surrender unto the laws of material nature. The living entity, by his constitutional position, is not independent. He must surrender either unto the Lord or unto the material nature. Material nature is also not independent of the Lord, since the Lord himself has claimed material nature as Mama Maya, or my energy, Bhagavad Gita 7:14, and as Me Bina Pakritir Astata, or my separated energy in 8 divisions, Bhagavad Gita 7.4. Therefore, material nature is also controlled by the Lord, as he has claimed in Bhagavad Gita 9.10. Mayadakshena prakriti suyate characharam. Under my direction only is material nature working, and thus are all things moving, and the living entities, being superior energy to matter, have choice and discrimination either to surrender unto the Lord or surrender unto material nature. By surrendering unto the Lord, one is happy and liberated, but by surrendering unto material nature, the living entity suffers. So, the end of all suffering means surrendering unto the Lord, because the surrendering process itself is bhava chidam, liberation from all material miseries, swasthyanayanam, perception of all happiness, and sumangalam, the source of everything auspicious. Therefore, liberty, happiness, and all good fortune can be attained only by surrendering unto the Lord, because he is full liberty, full happiness, and full auspiciousness. Such liberation and happiness are also unlimited, and they have been compared to the sky, although such liberation and happiness are infinitely greater than the sky. In our present position, we can simply understand the magnitude of greatness when it is compared to the sky. We fail to measure the sky, but the happiness and liberty obtained in association with the Lord are far greater than the sky. The spiritual happiness is so great that it cannot be measured, even by the Lord himself, not to speak of others. It is said in the scriptures, Brahma Sokyam Tvanantam. Spiritual happiness is unlimited. Here it is said that even the Lord cannot measure such happiness. This does not mean that the Lord cannot measure it, and is therefore imperfect in that sense. The actual position is that the Lord can measure it, but happiness in the Lord is also identical with the Lord on account of absolute knowledge. So the happiness derived from the Lord may be measured by the Lord, but the happiness increases again, and the Lord measures it again, and then again the happiness increases more and more, and the Lord measures it more and more. As such, there is eternally a competition between increment and measurement. So much so that the competition is never stopped, but goes on unlimitedly ad infinitum. Spiritual happiness is anandam buddhi vardhanam, or the ocean of happiness which increases. The material ocean is stagnant, but the spiritual ocean is dynamic. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila 4th chapter, Kaviraj Goswami has very nicely described this dynamic increment of the ocean of spiritual happiness in the transcendental person of Srimati Radharani, the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Therefore it is best for me to surrender unto his feet, which alone can deliver one from the miseries of repeated birth and death. Such surrender is all auspicious and allows one to perceive all happiness. Even the sky cannot estimate the limits of its own expansion. So what can others do when the Lord himself is unable to estimate his own limits? Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Well, this is very interesting purport because it elucidates many things, many points that people can easily misinterpret by a cursory reading of the purports or of the verses. So when it says that the Lord himself is unable to estimate his own limits, people say, aha, oh, this proves that Krishna is imperfect. He can't even estimate his own limits. No, that's not what that means. It sounds like it, but it's not what it means. It means that everything is dynamic in the spiritual world, whereas things are stagnant in the material world. Dynamic means it's always in progressive fluctuation. It's always increasing. So as soon as one experiences something and measures it, in the process of measuring what they just experienced, it increases. So therefore you have to measure again. And as soon as you think you've measured it, it increases. So you have to measure it again. So that's what it means by is unable to estimate his own limits, because there are no limits. It keeps increasing. So the Lord can measure it, but as soon as he measures, it increased again. So we don't understand what this means. In other words, the dynamic nature of transcendental love of Krishna. But this is explained in detail in the Chaitanya Charitamrita 4th Adi Lila 4th chapter. And this is extremely profound, and it's actually also confidential knowledge about the Lord. So, why did Lord Chaitanya appear? Why did Krishna appear as Lord Chaitanya? Why does he appear as Lord Vishnu? All these points are explained in this chapter. So it says that there are 3 confidential reasons why the Lord appeared, and 2 regular reasons why he appeared. The regular reasons are, 1, to preach the special significance of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare, in this age of Kali. Because this is the age of hypocrisy and quarrel. Everything is perverted by misinterpretations. And even the bona fide knowledge is sometimes misinterpreted. And there's many levels of misinterpretation of the bona fide knowledge. See? So, therefore, this age is very unfavorable for making spiritual advancement. So Lord Chaitanya appears and makes it very easy. So he explains the special significance of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. In other words, if you never chant any other mantra, it's okay, because the Hare Krishna Mahamantra includes everything in it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Chaitanya was constantly chanting the holy name. Haridas Thakur was constantly chanting the holy names of the Lord. And the 6 Goswamis were constantly chanting. Srila Prabhupada was constantly chanting. So, why is that? Because this Mahamantra is the quintessential truth of how to be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. It connects us directly to Krishna with the right mood of from our constitutional position of being this eternal servant of the Lord. So this contains the the absolute kernel of the absolute truth. So that was one reason, that is to propagate the chanting of the holy names, Hare Krishna, and spread love of God. Okay. And then the second, what's called external reason, was to answer the call of Advaitacharya, who prayed to the Lord by offering Ganges water and tulsi leaf to his Shalagram Sila, who's Krishna, and begged the Lord, please come, because if you don't come, then I will assume my form and I'll kill everybody, because they're all rascals in this Kali Yuga. But you come and you be merciful to everyone. You save them by your mercy, by teaching them Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and showing them what pure love of Krishna is. So the Lord had wanted to answer the call of Advaitacharya. So these are what's called the external two reasons. But there are three internal reasons, or very confidential reasons, why the Lord appeared, as why Krishna appeared as Lord Chaitanya. And the first one is that he perceived at one point that Radharani was experiencing more ecstasy than he was. And he was experiencing extreme ecstasy, but she was experiencing more ecstasy. He could understand that. He didn't understand what it was in himself that was giving her this more increased ecstasy than he himself was feeling. So how can he understand himself unless he accepts the position of someone outside of himself to perceive what it is in himself that is increasing her ecstasy more than his ecstasy? So therefore, he wanted to relish the position of Srimati Radharani. He can't do that as Krishna. So he appears as Lord Chaitanya to relish the position of Srimati Radharani, her love in separation, this Vipralamba Bhava, and how she's seeing something in Krishna that causes her to be more ecstatic than Krishna himself. Right? So the second confidential reason is to understand what it is exactly that she's seeing in him, this what you call mellow, or this extremely sweetness in him that is giving her greater pleasure than he himself. So he wanted to understand what this transcendental mellow of himself is. And number three, he wanted to enjoy the bliss tasted by Radharani. He wanted to actually experience this ecstasy that she was having. He can't do that in himself. He has to, in a sense, he has to accept the position of Radharani. She's completely surrendered to the Lord. She's completely sold out to the Lord. She has no other desire than to please the Lord. She has absolute love for the Lord. And she's seeing something in the Lord that's triggering this ever-expanding love, pure love, and it's full of ecstasy, and it's always expanding, it's always increasing. So he couldn't experience this in his position, so he had to take the position of Radharani. And therefore Lord Chaitanya has a golden hue, because the golden shining nature of Radharani encompassed him, covered him, because Krishna is darkish, right? He's blackish. But he was covered by this golden hue of Radharani, because Radharani heard that when he was going to do this, come in the world as Lord Chaitanya, and said, oh my God, he's going to accept my position, but sometimes I faint in ecstasy and roll on the ground. I can't imagine his wonderful body touching the ground. Therefore she covered him with her hue, with her golden hue, so that his body would not touch the ground when he fainted in ecstasy. And he did faint in ecstasy many times. We don't understand these. I mean, this is beyond our understanding, because we're talking about pure love of God. But we can hear about it and maybe get some understanding, or at least an inkling of it, So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says, 4th chapter, Adi Lila, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even a foolish child can fully describe the real nature of Lord Krishna, the enjoyer of the pastimes of Raja or Vrindavana, according to the vision of the revealed scriptures. Well, this seems to be an anomaly. It's just the most profound thing, and it's saying even a child can fully describe the real nature of Lord Krishna. How is that? Well, children are usually, it's generally understood that children are usually naive, but that naivete is not, maybe foolishness later on when they grow up a little more in the teenage life, but as a child, it's innocence. They're innocent. They don't know yet what sin is, right? And as long as someone is childish in that sense of being innocent and pure and not even imagining sense gratification, but being ready to follow instructions and out of natural submission. So the purport Prabhupada says, one can ascertain the meaning of this Sanskrit sloka only when one is endowed with the causeless mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Shri Krishna, being the absolute personality of Godhead, cannot be exposed to the mundane instruments of vision. He reserves, meaning the ordinary eyes, he reserves the right not to be exposed to the intellectual feats of the non-devotees. That means all the speculators like scientists and philosophers and politicians and so-called pundits. They're all speculating. They're all coming up with theories, but not real facts that are absolutely true in all circumstances. So it says, he reserves the right not to be exposed to the intellectual feats of non-devotees. Notwithstanding this truth, even a small child can easily understand Lord Shri Krishna and his transcendental pastimes in the land of Vrindavana by the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we have the example of Dhruva Maharaj. He was just a child of 5 years old, but his mom told him, "Look, you want to have a kingdom like your father, Tanapada. You want to greater than your father. The only person that can help you is Krishna." And Dhruva Maharaj says, in his childish innocence, "Well, where is Krishna?" And she says, "Well, it's said that he might be in the forest because there's a lot of saints that live in the forest. So you can go look for him there." So his mother gives him a hint. Prabhupada also gives us many hints in his books. Whether we catch it or not depends on our level of purity. And just like, you have baseball, so someone hits the ball, and it's way up in the air, and it's going to right field or left field, and there's someone out there who's trying to catch the ball, right? So in the same way, Prabhupada is throwing out a lot of hints in his books. I'll give you some examples of them. And it's up to us to catch them. You have to do some research. You have to think about it. You have to pray to the Lord, please let me find out what Prabhupada's referring to here. So in the same way, Dhruva Maharaj's mother gave him a hint where he could find Krishna. And he, in his childish innocence, accepted it fully. And said, "Okay, my mom said I can find God in the forest, so I'm going to the forest." He's only 5 years old. How's he going to eat? How's he going to sleep? There are wild animals in the forest, right? But that's not his concern. His concern is, I have to find this God. I have to find God because my mom said he's the only one who can help me get what I want, right? So he goes into the forest and he asks the trees and he asks the animals and he asks the plants, "Did you see Krishna? Where is Krishna?" And Krishna, seeing the determination, because Dhruva Maharaj was a Kshatriya, born of a Kshatriya family, so he has that determination, even he's only 5 years old. And Krishna sends Narada Muni. Narada Muni is Krishna's #1 devotee in the universe. And Narada said, "What are you doing, you little kid? Why are you walking around alone in this forest?" He said, "I want to see God." He says, "You're too young to see God. Why don't you go home to your mama?" He said, "No, why don't you go away? I'm going to continue looking for him." So when Narada Muni realized his absolute determination to see God, and this is something we should all have. We should have an absolute determination in my mind. I want to always be connected to Krishna. And here is the way to do it. Just chant Hare Krishna. And I can be connected to him right away. Right? And I want to see him. Or I want at least that he sees me all the time doing devotional service. That's the way I can eventually see him. Because Krishna is the ultimate seer. We're not the seer. Whoever's the seer is the enjoyer. Just like someone said, "Oh, let's go to the movies tonight and see this movie." What does that mean? That means they are the enjoyer and they're going to go and see. In the same way, someone will say, "Oh, let's go to the temple and see the deities, have darshan of the deities." Well, they're acting as the enjoyer when they say that. But rather, let's go to the temple and report ourselves in front of Krishna so he can see us and chastise us if he wants, or give us more service, because that's my life. My life is serving. So I want to ask for more service from the Lord. So if the Lord sees you engaged in service, then that means you accept that the Lord is the enjoyer and you are the seen. But if you say, "Let's go have darshan and see the deities, how they're dressed today." Okay, now that's not a bad idea. But it implies that we are the seer and the Lord is the seen. But what is the truth is, we should always be seen by the Lord. He's the enjoyer, and we should understand that, therefore we should only do things that are pleasing to the Lord. And we learn how to do those things from the instructions of Shiksha and Diksha gurus. So in this next verse it says, "All glories to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glory to Lord Nityananda, all glory to Sri Advaita Acharya, and all glory to all the devotees of Lord Chaitanya." This is a very famous verse. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Jaya Gora Bhakta Vrinda. So then in the next verse, "I have described the meaning of the 4th verse." That was the previous. There are 10 verses that are fundamental, that are answered by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Now he says, now I'm going to explain the 5th verse. These are 10 essential verses that forms the whole, let's say, compendium of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he says, just to explain the original verse, I shall first suggest its meaning. He says, I have given the essential meaning of the 4th verse. I have given the essential meaning of the 4th verse. This incarnation, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, descends to propagate the chanting of the holy name and spread love of God. So the previous chapter was about that. Now this new chapter says, although this is true, this is but the external reason for the Lord's incarnation. Please hear one other reason, the confidential reason for the Lord's appearance. Okay, and then Prabhupada says in the 3rd chapter, now we're in the 4th chapter, right? It says, in the 3rd chapter, 4th verse, it has been clearly said that Lord Chaitanya appeared in order to distribute love of Krishna and the chanting of his transcendental holy name, Hare Krishna. That was the secondary purpose of Lord Chaitanya's appearance. The real reason is different, and we shall see in this chapter. So then it says, the scriptures proclaim that Lord Krishna previously descended to take away the burden of the earth. Oh, what's the burden of the earth? That is, the people are committing sins and thinking that those sins are the source of happiness for them. So that's a terrible burden. And the earth cannot bear such a burden. But the time to lift the burden of the world mixed with the time for Lord's incarnation. So the Lord says that he is the maintainer of the principles of religion. Dharma, so therefore, whenever the principles of religion deteriorate, he has to come and reset them. Right? But that is mixed with the time, that is mixed with the burden of the earth. In other words, people became so sinful in the time of Lord Chaitanya, just as they are now also, that he came to straighten it out. So Prabhupada writes, we have information from the Bhagavad Gita that the Lord appears at particular intervals to adjust a time-worn spiritual culture. In other words, things deteriorate over time. So when spirituality deteriorates, he comes to give it a new boost. Lord Shri Krishna appeared at the end of Dwapara Yuga to regenerate the spiritual culture of human society and also to manifest his transcendental pastimes. Vishnu is the authorized Lord who maintains the created cosmos, and he is also the principal deity who makes adjustments when there is improper administration in the cosmic creation. But Sri Krishna, being the primeval Lord, appears not in order to make such administrative adjustments, but only to exhibit his transcendental pastimes and thus attract the fallen souls back home, back to Godhead. So here it's explaining the difference between the function of Lord Vishnu, who is a plenary expansion of Krishna, and Krishna himself in his original form. Lord Vishnu can make adjustments, he can kill demons and protect the devotees. But therefore he has four things in his four arms. He has, Sankha, Chakra, Gada, like that. He has four things. He has a conch shell and a lotus flower. That's for the pleasure of the devotees. And he's got a Gada, a mace, and a chakra, an atomic spinning chakra or wheel. That's for the demons. The wheel cuts their heads off, and the mace smashes them to the body. So therefore, in the form of Vishnu, he protects the devotees, and he annihilates the demons. But Krishna doesn't have those in his original transcendental form. He's holding the flute, and the flute is the source of all knowledge and ecstasy. And when he plays it, birds fall out of the sky, and rivers change their flow from one way to the opposite way. In other words, wonderful, amazing things happen when he plays this flute because it's full of transcendental knowledge and bliss. So it's different than the chakra and the gada. This explains the different function of Vishnu from that of Krishna. However, the time for administrative rectification and the time for Lord Shri Krishna's appearance coincided at the end of the last Dwapara Yuga. Therefore, when Sri Chaitanya appeared, Vishnu, the Lord of Maintenance, merged with him because all the plenary portions and parts of the Absolute Personality Godhead merged with him during his appearance. So when Krishna comes, all the other expansions of the Lord, as Narayana or Vishnu, are also present in the body of the Lord. When the complete Supreme Personality Godhead descends, all other incarnations of the Lord meet together within him. Lord Narayana, the four primary expansions, Vasudeva, Sankarsan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, Matsya, and the other Leela incarnations, the Yuga avatars, the many Antara incarnations, and as many other incarnations as there are, all descend in the body of Lord Krishna. In this way, the complete Supreme Godhead, Lord Krishna himself, appears. So Godhead, the concept of Godhead, encompasses all the expansions, the plenary, partial plenary, and partial plenary expansions of Krishna. That whole plethora of his expansions represents Godhead. So sometimes people say, well, God, but Godhead is the more complete understanding of God. So we have to understand what this word Godhead means. So at that time, therefore, Lord Vishnu is present in the body of Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna kills the demons through him. Lord Krishna doesn't have to fight with demons. He's always holding his or playing his flute and dancing with the gopis and his devotees. But when there's a necessity to fix things in the material universe, to annihilate some of the demons and protect the devotees, he does that in his form as Lord Vishnu. Thus, the killing of the demons is but secondary work. I shall now speak of the main reason for the Lord's incarnation as Lord Chaitanya. It says, the Lord's desire to appear was born from two reasons. The Lord wanted to taste the sweet essence of the mellows of love of God, and he wanted to propagate devotional service in the world on the platform of spontaneous attraction. Thus he is known as supremely jubilant and as the most merciful of all. So here's two big points. One is that he wanted to taste this sweetness, or this mellow, sweet essence of mellows of love of God. So there's something in him that is so sweet that he perceived that it was giving Radharani more pleasure than he was experiencing. Now, how is he going to figure out what that is? He has to accept the position of Radharani to do that, right? And secondly, he wanted to propagate devotional service, but on the platform of spontaneous attraction. So there's these two platforms of devotional service. One is called following the rules and regulations and engaging in devotional service. So that is sadhana bhakti. So if people who go to Vaikuntha, they're perfect in sadhana, right? But there's something higher than that, and that's called raganuga bhakti, spontaneous love of the Lord, in which there are no rules and regulations, because no one has any selfish desires on that platform. Their only desire is to please Krishna. They don't know anything else but Krishna. They don't even care about knowing that Krishna is God. They love him with no reservations. This is something that we don't know about. It's something strange for us, because everything we know is based on some kind of a you scratch my back, I scratch your back. This reciprocal thing. I get something back for what I do. But in this spontaneous love of Krishna, there's no demand for anything back. There's only one way. And our love for Krishna and unalloyed love, we have no other purpose in life than to please the Lord. And we consider ourselves as belonging to the Lord. It's his property. He can do anything he wants with me. So that's that type of complete, absolute love is not known in this world. So therefore, Lord Chaitanya came to give a taste of it, an example of it. During the period of Lord Krishna's appearance, the killing of asuras, or non-believers such as Kamsa and Jarasandha, was done by Vishnu, who was within the person of Sri Krishna. Such apparent killing by Lord Sri Krishna took place as a matter of course and was an incidental activity for him. But the real purpose of Lord Krishna's appearance was to stage a dramatic performance of his transcendental pastimes in Rajabhumi or Vrindavana, thus exhibiting the highest limit of transcendental mellow in the exchanges of reciprocal love between the living entity and the Supreme Lord. These reciprocal exchanges of mellows are called raga bhakti, or devotional service to the Lord in transcendental rapture. Lord Sri Krishna wants to make known all the conditioned souls that he is more attracted by raga bhakti than vidhi bhakti, or devotional service under scheduled regulations, meaning that is sadhana bhakti or vidhi bhakti, or devotional service under scheduled regulations, just like we have regulations, right? We are performing sadhana bhakti here, right? We have to wake up early, Brahma Muhurta, we have to chant our rounds, we have to take a bath, we have to chant our rounds, come to Mangala Aarti, do Tulsi Aarti, and so many things we're doing, Guru Puja. This is all sadhana bhakti. That doesn't mean it's something lower. It is the platform from which we can eventually, when all our material desires are eradicated and replaced by uniquely spiritual desires, then we can act on the level of Raganuga bhakti. But that has to be, again, under the instruction of bona fide spiritual master. So the spiritual master will appear to us when we're ready, when he thinks that we're ready to go to the next stage of Raganuga bhakti, or spontaneous love of the Lord. You don't just achieve. I mean, I've met people, they say, "Oh, you guys are doing sadhana, that's for lower class people." I mean, I'm doing Raganuga, and my guru gave it to me right away because he said this is the real goal. So you don't need the sadhana; you just come directly to Raganuga. So there are movements like that. That say that, and that's a bunch of nonsense. They say you have to go gradually through these different stages. You can't just jump to Raganuga bhakti, otherwise you'll become a sahajya, a fake Vaishnava, not a real Vaishnava. So Lord Shri Krishna wants to make known to all the conditioned souls that he is more attracted by Raga bhakti than by Vidhi bhakti, or devotional service under scheduled regulations. It is said in the Vedas, Taittiriya Upanishad 2.7, Rasovai Saha. The absolute truth is the reservoir for all kinds of reciprocal exchanges of loving sentiments. He is also causelessly merciful, and he wants to bestow upon us this privilege of Raga Bhakti. Thus he appeared by his own internal energy. He was not forced to appear by any extraneous force. So anyway, this is a big subject. We'll have to continue this tomorrow. But to misunderstand this would be a big mistake. And there are whole movements that misunderstand this. And they say, well, the real goal is Raga Bhakti, and I can give it to you right away. See? So that means that you have been misled by a cheater, and rather than actually attain Raganuga Bhakti, you'll become fallen and misled. So Krishna consciousness is a gradual process, and if we follow it and systematically and completely depend on the mercy of Shiksha and Diksha gurus, eventually we'll attain that level of Raga Bhakti. But it's not something cheap. It's only after tremendous, tremendous lifetimes of devotional service that one can come to that level. So don't make it cheap. It's something very precious. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yeah.
How to cultivate the Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, as you have explained about Dhruv Maharaj's determination, so how to cultivate that determination? That even he is like 5-year-old, he had so much determination. He was not even concerned about darkness of the forest and food and animals. Like
it's through constant association with advanced devotees. It has to be constant association. You won't arrive at that determination by associating with, let's say, what you would call nonchalant devotees, or devotees who are satisfied with a lower level of dedication. You have to associate with devotees who are, just like associating with Prabhupada, you would come to that determination. I'm not going to do anything else but Krishna consciousness. So, but we're trying to associate with Prabhupada every day by hearing his purports, by becoming more serious about following rules and regulations, not trying to jump artificially to raga bhakti like the false teachers claim. So it takes time, Prabhu. You have to be determined. Come every day, hear, serve, work honestly, maintain your family, but understand what the real goal of life is. Eventually, family won't be there anymore. Right? So you have to build up your relationship with Krishna continually. So it's through association with advanced devotees.
Right. Thank you.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Satma Vando Mui Sahabadana Mate Janara Prasadevai E Bhavatoriya Jai Krishna Prapti Oya Oite Guru Mukha Padma Vaikya Chitete Koriyakya Arana Koriyamane Asa Shri Guru Charane Rati Eseyutamagati Ye Prasade Pure Sava Asa Chakshudan Dilaje Janme Janme Prabhu se Chakshudan Dilaje Janme Janme Prabhu se Divya Gyani de Prakasito Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasajate Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasajate Vede Gajanara Charito Vedegai Janara Charito Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu. Lokenat Lokera Jalvana. Lokenat Lokera Jivana. Haha Prabhu Kora Doya Deha More Padachaya. Haha Prabhu Kora Doya Deha More Padachaya. Ebeas Kusikchi Bhuvana. Ebeas Kusikchi Bhuvana. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namani. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gaur Hari Bol 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 Nitai Gaur Premanandi Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajika Chasta Tarasata Rishi Shimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Alantakoti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shikoho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivedanta Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanand all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Bhavana Ki Jai. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vestaya Bhutani Sanata Bhakti Rasmata. Namaste Saraswati Devi. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus desire. I recognize and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master, the ocean of mercy, friend of the poor and Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter of your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityananda. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachari Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya